Salute, y'all. What's up? We back in the building, man. Hey, check this out. President Trump, you know what I'm saying, done detained 475 illegal immigrants working at a Hyundai plant in Georgia, man. What's up, y'all? Shout out to everybody in the building, man. What's up? Yeah, it's crazy, man. He reached a deal with the South Korean president. I don't know exactly what the deal was, but he reached one. But yeah, man, Trump and ICE have detained 475 Korean immigrants working at a Hyundai plant in Georgia, man. Can't make this stuff up. Let's check it out.
Live down from Fox, I'm your host, Mike Page. Always great to be with you. Friday edition continues to carry on. And tonight we are getting new information on a major raid that happened in Georgia when it comes to immigration. Take a look here from ATF Atlanta putting this out today. ATF Atlanta joined HSI, FBI, DEA, ICE, GSP, and other agencies in a major immigration enforcement operation at the Hyundai mega site battery plant in Bryan County, Georgia, leading to the apprehension of 450 unlawful aliens, emphasizing our commitment to community safety, and then hashtag ATF. So for more on this, let's showcase Fox News' Connor Hansen with a breakdown of this major bust.
Federal agents arrested 475 workers after raiding a sprawling
475 workers. Lord have mercy. What's up with it? Libra, baby, we in the building, man. Make sure y'all double tapping that screen, getting them likes up. We also got a live press conference with activists who are giving the updates on the well-being of these immigrants that were detained by ICE. 475 of them.
Hyundai EV battery factory under construction in Georgia.
Hey.
Most of them are South Koreans who were subcontractors in the country illegally, according to investigators.
Together, we are sending a clear and unequivocal message that those who exploit our workforce, undermine our economy, and violate federal laws will be held accountable.
Those arrested were handed over to ICE and brought to a detention center. Hyundai says none of them were direct employees. It's the largest raid so far as the Trump administration ramps up immigration enforcement.
This has been a multi-month criminal investigation where we have developed evidence, conducted interviews, gathered documents, and presented that evidence to the court in order to obtain a judicial search warrant.
The recently opened 2,000-acre campus is one of the largest economic projects in Georgia history. South Korean leaders were not happy with the news. Just over a week ago, its president visited the White House and pledged to invest billions of dollars in the U.S., including for battery manufacturing.
In Seoul, we also conveyed our concerns and regret through the U.S. Embassy today, urging special attention to ensure that the legitimate rights and interests of our citizens are not violated.
Governor Brian Kemp says
475 illegals, guys. That's crazy. Double tap that screen. Continue to get those likes up, man. Whoa, Georgia done did it, man. Trump is acting a fool.
Georgia National Guard troops will support ICE in Georgia, and hundreds will go to Washington, D.C. to help with federal crime-fighting efforts. In New York, Connor Hansen, Fox News.
Hey, Connor, thanks so much for that update. And now we want to showcase the full news conference from Georgia officials and federal officials talking about this bust.
We have Greg Alvarez, the field office director with the United States Customs and Border Patrol. Brad Snyder, the resident special agent in charge with the Federal Bureau of Investigations. Joseph Waller, the resident in charge with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. Brian Viella, with the assistant special agent in charge with the Drug Enforcement Administrations. And then we have Brett Hall, United States Marshal's Office with the Southern District of Georgia. First, I want to extend my sincere appreciation to the agencies that played a critical role in this investigation. This effort was led by Homeland and Security Investigations with Steve Schrank at the helm. Also, with the vital assistance from the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Removal Operations, the Federal Bureau of Investigations, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the Internal Revenue Service, Criminal Investigations, the United States Department of Labor, the Office of the Inspector General, the United States Marshal Service, the Georgia State Patrol, and Assistant United States Attorneys Tanya Groover, Ryan Bondura, Kelsey Scanlon, and Greg Galuli. This outcome is the direct result of their hard work and commitment. Such an undertaking can only be accomplished through combined efforts, resources, and dedication of these agencies working together with a shared goal. The Department of Justice mission is to reduce illegal employment and prevent employers from gaining an unfair advantage by hiring unauthorized workers and exploiting those workers. This is an ongoing investigation, and we are limited as to what we can discuss. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Schrank to give more information on the matter. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Meg. Good morning, and thank you all for coming. My name is Stephen Schrank. I'm the Special Agent in charge of Homeland Security Investigations for the states of Georgia and Alabama. Yesterday, Homeland Security Investigations, in coordination with our law enforcement partners, executed a judicial search warrant as part of an ongoing criminal investigation into allegations of unlawful employment practices and serious...
So they raided a Hyundai plant in Georgia. Guys arrested 475 illegal immigrants from South Korea. Yeah, it's crazy, y'all. Now they have been in negotiations with the president of Korea, and they are looking to send some of the people back to Korea. I wonder what the details of the deal is. I do not know yet. We most definitely gonna get to it. But man, double tap that screen. That's how you hit the like button if you're on a mobile device. Click those three dots, hit the thumbs up, man, as we get caught up. Shout out to everybody in the building. This is Everything News, and we most definitely cover everything news.
Federal crimes. This operation underscores our commitment to protecting jobs for Georgians and Americans, ensuring a level playing field for businesses that comply with the law, safeguarding the integrity of our economy, and protecting workers from exploitation. The investigation resulted in the arrest of 475 individuals and is focused on an arrest of 475 individuals.
Whoa! How many?
The arrest of 475 individuals.
475
and is focused on ensuring accountability for those who violate the law and uphold the rule of law. Complex cases like this require strong collaboration and extensive investigative efforts. And we extend our gratitude to ICE Enforcement and Removal Operations, the United States Department of Labor, Office of Inspector General, FBI, DEA, Customs and Border Protection, ATF, IRS, U.S. Marshals, and the Georgia State Patrol for their invaluable support. Each agency contributes.
Come on, guys, it's not hard. Click those three dots, hit that thumbs up. It helps out the channel, man. We got 343 people in the building, man. We should have at least 300 likes. Get the likes up. If you're on a mobile device, just simply double tap your screen. If you're on any kind of other device, click those three dots, hit that thumbs up, man. It helps out the channel, man. I ain't asking you for no money. I'm asking you to hit that like button if you don't mind.
Specialized experience that was critical to the success of this lengthy operation. Together, we are sending a clear and unequivocal message that those who exploit our workforce, undermine our economy, and violate federal laws will be held accountable. I'd like to add that this was not an immigration operation where agents went into the premises, rounded up folks, and put them on buses. This has been a multi-month criminal investigation where we have developed evidence.
So they've been watching, y'all. They've been watching, and they just now decided to execute the search warrant or whatever. Yeah, this is ICE, guys. 475 individuals detained by ICE in Georgia.
Conducted interviews, gathered documents, and presented that evidence to the court in order to obtain a judicial search warrant. Yesterday, we executed that search warrant and gathered additional evidence that will support this investigation. There are no criminal charges being announced today, but this is an ongoing matter. While we were on the premises, we did encounter many hundreds of individuals. Of those, as I previously mentioned, 475 were illegally present in the United States or in violation of their presence in the United States, working unlawfully, who have entered through a variety of different means into the United States, some that illegally crossed the border into the United States, some that came in through visa waiver and were prohibited from working, some that had visas and overstayed their visas.
I told y'all this mass deportation situation didn't look like a good idea, man. They're gonna get a lot of blowback behind this, I guarantee it.
And each individual was questioned on their status, their documents were checked, their backgrounds were checked, and ultimately through coordination of our experts and attorneys in the background, those that were found to be illegally present were then detained and turned over to ICE enforcement and removal operations custody. But this is all in furtherance of the ongoing investigation where we are looking at employment practices. We made seizures yesterday as part of that to gather additional evidence and conducted interviews and are continuing this ongoing investigation. We will take some limited questions at this time.
Of the 475, how many were Korean nationals or Korean media?
I seen somebody say, man, this is a distraction from the Epstein files. Could it be? Let me know.
There was a majority of Korean nationals from the 475. I don't have the exact nationality breakdown for you, but we can likely get that after the fact.
Were these employees of HLGA Battery? Were they employees of construction contractors that were doing construction work on the site? Who did they work for?
As we had determined through our investigation in advance and certainly experienced yesterday, there was a network of subcontractors and subcontractors for the subcontractors there. So the employees worked for a variety of different companies that were on the site. It was not just the parent company, but also subcontractors, and we're unveiling that whole network.
But some of them work for the parent company, is that right? The Battery, HLGA?
Yeah, we continue to work on the investigation of who exactly.
Can we get these likes to 100? We need 50 more people who are on mobile devices to double tap their screen or click those 3 dots and hit that thumbs up, y'all. It helps out the channel. Let's continue to hit that like button. Get the likes up.
Worked for what companies?
Where are these 475 people now?
They are in the custody of ICE enforcement and removal operations.
Where?
Most were brought to the Folkston D-Ray facility last night, and they will be moved based on their individual circumstances.
What's
beyond
up,
that.
Sydney?
Yes, ma'am.
WTOC has been investigating and reporting on the presence of undocumented workers on the site for about a year now, and so this has kind of been something that's been known to some extent in the local community. What is it that prompted Homeland Security investigations to look into this?
Yeah, we are aware and we have monitored that reporting as well. We have also received many leads from community members, from prior workers. We have conducted many arrests through the immigration operations throughout the state of Georgia that have identified other employees that, when encountered, informed us that they worked there. We have interviewed folks and we have developed evidence over the course of many months in support of the investigation.
What are some potential consequences that the company could face, or is that something you can speak to right now?
I don't want to speculate on ultimate. This is an ongoing investigation. No charges have been filed, so that means that no wrongdoing is being accused at this time.
I have a question.
Robert, let's stop spamming the chat, man. I don't want to have to block you. You will get deported if you keep on spamming. We seen you put the Epstein files the first time. We don't need you spamming the chat, dog. Thank you for your opinion. Now stop putting it in the chat.
Was anyone injured during the process? Did anyone die during the process of this raid?
There were no substantial uses of force. There were no injuries reported other than one individual was overheating a little bit and was treated on scene. And one agent suffered a minor laceration while conducting it, but no significant injuries.
Okay, and then during the process, you said this was a multi-month process. Can you kind of, I guess, give how many months did it take? I guess is my question.
This has been ongoing.
See you later, Robert. You just got deported. We'll holler at you, dog. Go find you another chat to spam.
Throughout this year.
So can we say January?
I don't have the exact start date of the investigation.
How does this operation compare to other operations in the state of Georgia and across the nation? Was this one of the largest ones, or can you kind of give us an idea of how big this was?
This, in fact, was the largest single-site enforcement operation in the history of Homeland Security investigations.
Any last question?
Across the country, yes.
Last question?
Yeah, did HLTA Battery, did they use E-Verify in their employment practices?
I don't want to answer for them.
One quick one.
Is there any evidence of labor trafficking at this point?
That is something that is always part of our investigations when we're doing employment investigations. As I've indicated, there have been no charges filing, but it is certainly something that we will be looking for.
Okay, thank you, folks. Appreciate it. We can handle any follow-ons after the fact, okay? Thanks, sir. Ma'am.
Thank you.
It's crazy,
Just takes a
y'all.
look at some of the video that came out from this immigration raid, and we were just seeing just some of the shots there from officials. We also want to showcase this statement from the Georgia AFL-CIO union president responding to the Georgia ICE raid, saying, Georgia's labor movement is outraged by ICE's escalating presence at workplaces across the state. This raid is the latest in an ongoing campaign of harassment that has targeted immigrant Georgians as they try to earn an honest living, arresting and detaining workers who are exploited every day and risk their lives every day on the job, creates an atmosphere of fear that terrorizes workers and their families and increases the workload burden on their co-workers. And when multiple workers have died during the construction of this very plant, the only federal action that could possibly be justified is to strengthen enforcement of occupational safety and health protections and other labor rights, a far cry from ICE raids. We stand with every worker who has been targeted by these politically motivated raids. Our movement will do everything we can to support all working families. That's what solidarity looks like. It cannot be broken. Workers in our state will not be pitted against each other there. And that is the union's response, calling it politically motivated.
That's crazy, y'all. So we see, that basically, Trump them is not playing around, man. More on the raids, man. Let's go.
24/7, federal immigration agents detained more than 450 people at a Hyundai manufacturing site just west of Savannah, Georgia. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives said multiple agencies helped carry out this operation. Authorities claim it was connected to an investigation over unlawful employment practices. The 3,000-acre site has only been operational for a year.
For 1 year, guys.
CBS News immigration and politics reporter Camilo Montoya Galvez.
So that kind of gives us a timeline. At first, they said they had been working on this for a certain amount of months. We didn't know how long the plant been open or how long they could have been watching. But we know now that the plant has been open for only 1 year. That means they probably been watching the whole time, or probably was just tipped off. Or only been watching for a couple of months, but they were able to capture 475 illegal immigrants, guys, who are all detained right now at this time.
Yes, Camilo, thank you for your time today. This raid happened at one of Georgia's largest and most high-profile manufacturing sites. So what does it tell you about the strategy of ICE when it comes to immigration?
Good morning, Mugo. Officials say that according to the Department of Homeland Security, nearly 500 people suspected of working and living in the U.S. illegally were detained during this operation. which officials say could be the largest single-site operation ever conducted in the history of Homeland Security investigations, a branch of the Department of Homeland Security that deals with labor trafficking and other immigration-related crimes. According to officials, multiple agencies were involved in this operation, including Border Patrol, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, the ATF, the IRS, the FBI, and also the DEA. That really underscores, Mugo, the government-wide nature of the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal immigration. Most of the detainees, according to officials, are nationals of Korea. Let's take a listen to how one ICE official described the operation.
This was not a immigration operation where agents went into the premises, rounded up folks, and put them on buses. This has been a multi-month criminal investigation.
Welcome everybody to Everything News. We are covering the ICE raid in Georgia on a Hyundai plant where they arrested 475 illegal immigrants, guys. Make sure you subscribing to the channel if you're new, and most definitely double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device. That's how you hit the like button, or you can click those three dots and click the thumbs up. I encourage everybody to hit that like button and subscribe, guys. We're on the road to 50K. We need every subscriber we can get, so subscribe, guys. This is Everything News.
Where we have developed evidence, conducted interviews, gathered documents, and presented that evidence to the court in order to obtain a judicial search warrant. Yesterday, we executed that search warrant and gathered additional evidence that will support this investigation. There are no criminal charges being announced today, but this is an ongoing matter.
And Mugo, we should underscore that the Trump administration, since the president took office for a second time, has already conducted several large-scale immigration enforcement operations at work sites across the country, including at a meatpacking plant in Nebraska and a horse racetrack in Louisiana.
And Camilo, Hyundai is a South Korean company, so any response so far from the Korean government about this?
Yes, indeed, Mugo. A spokesperson for the South Korean government said in part, and I quote, "The economic activities of our companies investing in the U.S. and the rights and interests of our nationals must not be unfairly violated." So clearly, the government of South Korea wants the U.S. to respect the due process rights and the legal rights of the people from their country who are now facing deportation. We are told by officials, Mugo, that most of those detainees have been moved to a detention center in Georgia, where they are being processed for deportation.
They're in the detention. There you go, Miss America. They're in a detention center in Georgia, Miss America. That's where they are currently being housed. This is crazy.
Your own original reporting. A Navy base in Chicago could be used to accommodate federal agents ahead of a possible federal deployment. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, Muga, we obtained an internal Department of Homeland Security memo that shows the Trump administration asked the Secretary of Defense to allow a naval base in Illinois to be used as a staging area of sorts for a large-scale immigration operation campaign in the Chicago area in the coming days and weeks. We are told by Homeland Security officials that some Border Patrol and ICE agents have begun moving into this facility known as the Great Lakes Naval Station, about an hour north of Chicago, as well as equipment that is staging there is also arriving to that base. And we are told that these operations in Chicago could start as soon as today and this weekend. This is part, of course, of a broader Trump administration effort to really crack down on so-called sanctuary cities by sending more manpower and resources to target people who are suspected of being in the country illegally. The administration, as you know, is also targeting these cities with lawsuits and threats to withhold federal funding, Mugo.
Camilo Montoya Galvez, as always, thank you.
Wow, guys. So yeah, man, they say they have been watching, guys. And y'all know, after something like this happens, people have to respond. And that's what the South Korean president did. He was just here not too long ago talking about pouring money into the United States. So imagine how he felt after he found out that some of his people from South Korea were being arrested by the U.S. Government, basically, by ICE, and being detained in Georgia and being put in detention centers. He most definitely had a response. Let's check out what the South Korean president had to say about all of this. Hold up.
Workers at a Georgia Hyundai plant describe a chaotic scene after an immigration raid at the facility. Federal authorities say Thursday's raid was the result of a months-long investigation by several agencies. The crackdown, the largest so far on U.S. work sites, led to 475 arrests of mostly Korean nationals. Some of the workers tried to flee as word of the raid spread. CNN's Rafael Roma is covering the story. What more are you learning of what was really a chaotic scene?
It was difficult to find out details about what actually transpired the first couple of days, but now we're hearing from people and officials exactly what happened. And one of the things that we have learned, some of the details that we have learned, Fred, after the massive raid conducted Thursday, include that officers spoke with each worker one by one to determine which were in the U.S. legally and allowing some to leave while taking undocumented immigrants into custody. By the time they were done at 8 p.m. on Thursday, agents had arrested 475 people, most of them Korean nationals, making it the largest sweep yet in the current Trump administration's immigration crackdown at American job sites. CNN obtained a video that shows a Homeland Security investigation.
They said this is the largest amount of arrests that has went on so far since they've been doing the deportations, guys. The largest in U.S. history. 475 illegals, guys.
This agent telling workers to cease operations immediately. Let's take a look.
We need construction to cease immediately. We need all work to end on the site right now.
Wow.
And shortly after the agents arrived at the plant and workers.
And remember, this plant has only been open for 1 year, guys. That means they have probably been watching the whole time, getting tipped off by workers, people who couldn't get jobs because the bosses were too busy hiring illegal immigrants to do the work. And basically they said that these people were underpaid. They wasn't even getting what they were supposed to get. But it was 475 arrests, guys. Wow.
Realized what was happening after word spread across the property. Chaos ensued with many workers attempting to flee.
What's up,
some even running into a sewage pond and others hiding in air ducts. A Homeland Security investigation special agent described how agents screened each person suspected of being in the country illegally.
Some that illegally crossed the border into the United States. Some that came in through visa waiver and were prohibited from working. Some that had visas and overstayed their visas. And each individual was questioned on their status. Their documents were checked. Their backgrounds were checked.
In a statement sent to CNN last night, Hyundai said the following regarding the immigration raid in Georgia. We are reviewing our processes to ensure that all parties working on our projects maintain the same high standards of legal compliance that we demand of ourselves. This includes thorough vetting of employment practices by contractors and subcontractors. The company also said that Hyundai has zero tolerance for those who don't follow the law. In an interview with CNN, former Deputy Homeland Security Secretary under President Trump, Ken Cuccinelli, said conducting this type of raid is a major undertaking.
There's a lot of work that goes into an operation of this scale and of this depth, including investigation by multiple agencies. Obviously, it takes a lot of investigative manpower. And that's all going on in parallel with a whole bunch of other investigations across the country.
The plant that was targeted was built after Hyundai announced an agreement with the state of Georgia in 2022 to build what the company called at the time the first dedicated, fully electrified vehicle and battery manufacturing facilities in the United States. The plant was projected to employ 8,500 people once completed. But as you heard a moment ago, they were ordered to stop all work.
So this delays operations.
For sure.
All right, Rafael Romo, thanks so much. Good to see you.
Wow.
All right, the massive...
Can we get those likes up, guys? Let's get the likes up. We're getting a lot of information, man. Some that y'all may not have known, all in one spot. Double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device. Click those three dots. Hit that like button, man. Hit the thumbs up, and most definitely subscribe to the channel if you're new. We on the road to 50K, man. We need every subscriber we can get. So subscribe.
ICE raid prompted a sharp response from the South Korean president. CNN's Mike Valerio is in Seoul with more on the reaction there.
Well, the headline from here is certainly that South Korea's president, Lee Jae-myung, is getting involved in this matter, telling his officials that, quote, all out necessary measures should be done to support Korean nationals in this matter and to resolve.
Man, they need to do it. He basically, this is the South Korean president right here. He's saying, man, we need to do everything we can do in order to resolve this issue.
Resolve it as fast as possible. Now, the split screen from where he was just about 10 days ago is certainly dramatic, considering that he was at the Oval Office meeting with President Trump, talking about a new...
He was just sitting down with Trump. I told y'all, man, and then just imagine. You just said you was going to spend a whole lot of money with the U.S., and then all of a sudden you get a call that says a lot of your people are being detained in Georgia in facilities due to ICE arresting them. Man, that's crazy. That's crazy, man. Way to mess up a good thing. That's throw.
Investments that South Korea would make into a reality, making American shipbuilding again, improving investments in manufacturing in the United States. This battery factory, run by Hyundai as a joint venture with the other South Korean giant, LG, is certainly part of that narrative. And now, to see this operation, the biggest of its kind taken in the second Trump administration, it is so striking and has hit such an emotional chord with a multitude of people here in South Korea. Quite astounded that not just one or two or a few dozen South Koreans have been detained as part of this operation, but more than 300.
More than 300
by South Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs today. Along those lines,
guys, of 475 people, more than 300 of them were South Korean, guys. Wow. Wow, wow, wow.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs has said that if this situation isn't resolved, he could conceivably go to Washington, D.C., saying in part, quote, as we discuss this issue further today, we are also considering dispatching a high-level official to the U.S. to address the situation. If necessary, I, meaning the foreign minister, am prepared to travel to Washington, D.C., personally to engage directly with U.S. officials to resolve this matter.
Yeah, so if need be, they coming to the United States, guys. They got to get this situation under control. From what I hear, there's a possible deal in the works, man. We'll get to that in a minute.
Unclear at the moment what, if any, charges could be filed, will be filed, and how long will it take to release all 300 plus of these South Korean nationals. Again, hitting such a chord with people halfway around the world. Mike Valerio, CNN, Seoul.
It's crazy, y'all. This is crazy.
The Trump administration's immigration crackdown really being felt in Georgia. Hundreds of federal officers raiding a massive Hyundai electric vehicle plant that was being built in southeast Georgia. So this happened yesterday, not too far from Savannah.
Wow,
in all, 475 people were detained in what is being described as the largest operation in the history of Homeland Security investigations. Several agencies were involved here. And on that same day, hundreds of miles north in upstate New York, dozens of workers at a family-owned plant that makes nutrition bars were arrested during an ICE raid.
So at the same time, while they were working in Georgia, ICE was also working in New York, guys. They are on a rampage, man. Look, ICE is really cracking down on all illegal immigrants, man. If you ain't got your papers, I think you better go get them, man, before you be deported like some of these trolls over here. We got more rockets than Elon Musk, and we deport people faster than Trump. So keep it respectful in that chat. Most definitely voice your opinions. They are welcome. Make sure you misspell your cuss words. I mean, this is outrageous, guys. This is crazy. I knew this was going to happen. I predicted it when they first said they were going to do it, that it was going to be a lot of blowback behind this situation. And now look at the present state that we in right now.
Joining us now is former acting director of ICE, John Sandwig. John, it's good to have you with us. When we look at, first of all, this raid in Georgia, again, multi-agency raid, we learned from officials a short time ago, this was really the result of a months-long investigation. Of the 475 people who were detained, they were largely Korean.
We found out again that this was only a month long, guys. They said now remember, old dude got up there on the podium a while ago and said, this is not something we just decided to go raid. We had been investigating for however long. I don't think he gave a specific time span of how long they've been investigating, but we find out that it only took a month, y'all, and they was in that thing. It only been open in a year. They've been investigating for 1 month, and they basically went up there and arrested 475 people, which 300 of them were South Korean, guys.
Nationals. It's actually more than a third of the workforce at this plant. When it comes to a raid of this size, how does it all come together? We talk about a months-long investigation, but where does that actually begin? Is it a tip, typically?
Yeah, Eric, I think this is something that's really reminiscent of what we saw a lot of in the George W. Bush administration, where ICE did a lot of these large worksite raids. Typically, it begins from a tip, or, really what happened here is the administration said, we want to restart these raids. Would have told HSI, the criminal investigative side of ICE, months ago, to start looking for appropriate targets. ICE then uses a number of tactics. It could be tips. It could be looking at payroll records for anomalies. It could just be what's called an I-9 audit, where you go in and you look at the immigration paperwork we all fill out when we get a new job. Either way, ICE gets a lead on that. Now, we know they had a criminal search warrant, so they had to go to a magistrate and demonstrate there's probable cause for a criminal investigation. Typically, the target of that investigation is the employer, but let's be real, too. The benefit to ICE are twofold. One is they make 400 arrests. They like that. They like the civil immigration side. It helps them meet that quota. But then the second piece of this is this deterrent message, Erica. And what we're seeing throughout all these immigration actions is that kind of the subtext to it is putting, driving immigrants to leave the country, whether that's scaring employers to try to eliminate jobs, or just making people feel fear that they're not safe at work. And you can't lose sight of that implicit message here, which is trying to encourage that self-deportation.
Does this, when we couple this with the fact that there was a separate raid at this plant in upstate New York yesterday, does this signal to you a shift in the strategy at all?
I think it's part of the strategy. Again, I think we've seen this on a much smaller scale in LA. We've seen a little bit of this in DC and across the country. ICE likes these type of operations because they can arrest large quantities of people. You get to a work site, you get to lower wage, where there's lower skilled employment, you're going to find large numbers of migrants. What's different with this raid in Georgia is it's a very large operation. It took months of planning to get to. And Erica, I think we're going to see more of these.
Now, once again, they just contradicted themselves. The news said that it took 1 month for them to do. Now he's saying it took multiple months of planning. So how long were you guys really watching these people? If you planned for months, as you say, but the news said it only took 1 month, somebody lying. I don't know who it is that's lying, but somebody is lying. If they say you were only watching for 1 month, and then you say it took multiple months of planning in order to do this raid, who telling the truth? Who y'all think telling the truth? Let me know, because there's most definitely a contradiction here.
Undoubtedly, MS-13 gang members, your transnational cartel members, who might have infiltrated the U.S., they don't work in these factories. That's not who you arrest there. So it's more about the volume of people they arrest, but not really the quality when it comes to public safety.
Yeah, we're hearing about a number of people who may have overstayed their visas, for example. There are also, it's also fascinating to me. You mentioned that if this was a months-long investigation, they could have been looking for an appropriate site. This site in particular, the fact that there was this EV battery plant being built there, the president touting Hyundai's investment in the United States back in March, specifically highlighting its efforts in Georgia. Typically, what would the communication and or even the coordination be between the administration, letting the president know, for example, and Homeland Security or ICE when it comes to a raid like this?
Yeah, typically, Erica, this is not, obviously, things are not always as typical in this administration as with other administrations. Typically, though, you would try to divorce those two things, right? You would not want the politics to be driving whether it's an appropriate target. There could be communications. You could alert the White House that such a large, high publicity operation is going to happen. You would need to do that carefully through White House counsel, through appropriate channels. I don't think this is driven so much by the politics, though, as it was by the opportunity that they thought this presented to make a large number of arrests. But again, difficult to say, right?
Yeah, and it's also because we had, conflicting or shifting comments, I should say, from the president over the summer, announcing that farm workers, for example, would not be targeted. And then taking that back just a number of days later. I also just want to get your take before I let you go on Chicago. So the city itself bracing for this potential deployment, maybe of the National Guard.
Now remember, Trump is supposed to be sending in the National Guard to Chicago against everybody, all the people that are in power there, against their best wishes. They saying, we don't want the troops. Trump said, oh, well, if you don't want them, we're going to send them anyway. So now they're getting ready to brace for an influx of the National Guard in Chicago, man. I most definitely agree that they need some kind of help down there in Chicago. They call that Chirac. It's a lot of unalivings that go on in Chicago. They most definitely need some kind of help, in my opinion. I'm just saying.
I spoke with the Lieutenant Governor of Illinois a short time ago. She said they are expecting increased immigration actions likely to begin tomorrow. Based on what we have seen in Los Angeles, even the crime efforts here in Washington, D.C., some of which have resulted in some immigration action, is this, in your eyes, is this an effective immigration tool for this administration?
Okay, my concern with it is this. We're pulling FBI agents, we're pulling Homeland Security investigations agents, and we're pulling ICE ERO officers off of what they would otherwise be doing to focus on these kind of operations. To date, in LA and DC, what we've seen them arrest are your run-of-the-mill economic migrants. Not the people, not those gang members, not those convicted felons who pose a threat to the U.S. And the problem is, it's not just, is it worth getting those people, but what are we losing, right? We're pulling agents off of cases who would be investigating export control, right? Stopping the illegal export of weapons technology to North Korea or Iran, or engaged in complicated, cross-border drug smuggling investigations or money laundering investigations. We're pulling agents off that beat to do immigration enforcement, but not against the high-value targets. Look, we'll see what happens in Chicago. I understand why they're drawn to Chicago. There's this political element. Illinois is also the 6th largest state when it comes to undocumented migration. And Cook County has had a very aggressive sanctuary policy that limits ICE's access to the jail. But I think the answer to these questions will be seen by what are the results of this operation? Who are the migrants they arrest? And I do think they're legitimate questions. Is it worth it? And is America safer overall when we're pulling these agents from these other responsibilities to do that kind of work?
John Sandvik, really great to have your insight and your expertise.
Yeah, all right. So we got an inside look, from one of the agents, or basically the spokesperson, for ICE about this whole situation. I think that it's only appropriate that we hear from some of the people who basically are speaking up for these illegals that were detained, basically arrested in Georgia, man. They held the whole press conference talking about what happened, as well as the well-being of the people who were arrested. Let's go there, man. You know what I'm saying? We most definitely got it live. Let's go.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniela Rodriguez, and I am the Executive Director of Migrant Equity Southeast. On Thursday, September 4, my team and I woke up to the devastating news. Immigration and Customs Enforcement was a Hyundai. From 11 a.m. until almost 11 p.m., it was chaotic. Not just for the immigrant workers, but for the entire community as a whole. Helicopters and drones circled the facility. Roads were blocked, and our phones rang non-stop. Calls from desperate family members looking for their loved ones. The calls have not stopped since then. We still have people calling our office, terrified and uncertain and heartbroken. Many of these people had legal work permits. Yet,
Well, she said many of these people had legal work permits, guys, which means that they were here legally to work. They had legal work permits. So why did they get arrested? This is crazy. That's why you have to listen to both sides, man. That's why you have to listen to both sides.
Okay. Many of these people had legal work permits. Yet, many of these people had legal work permits.
Legal work permits.
Many of these people had legal work permits. Yet, they still felt intimidated, mistreated, and abused.
It's all in who you believe, my guy. You say ICE been watching them for a while. Well, according to the news, they was only watching them for 1 month. A month, 30 days. They were only watching for 30 days, according to the news. Now, ICE says they were watching for a while, but the news says they was only watching for a month. Somebody lying.
By ICE. Make no mistake, we cannot call ourselves a civilized society if the very people who build our homes, our cars, and our futures are treated this way. We cannot call ourselves a civilized society if the very people who keep coastal Georgia thriving are treated this way. Almost 500 workers were arrested, including people from South Korea, Guatemala, Colombia, Chile, Mexico, Ecuador, and Venezuela. Workers have said that their phones were confiscated and that they were forced to sign documents. ICE agents, heavily armed officers, use both physical and psychological intimidation tactics. These actions go beyond the workplace. Fathers, sons have been turned away from their family. We even had a case of a pregnant lady.
Of a pregnant lady.
A pregnant lady who had to hide to protect her future and the future.
I see somebody said to avoid things like this, why not just get your documentation beforehand? Well, according to her, some of them had legal reasons to be here. Everybody wasn't illegal, according to her. You know, but hey, some were. This is crazy.
Baby. This is more than just immigration status. These ICE raids expose an inhumane system that criminalizes immigrant labor. Will billion-dollar companies continue to profit? We are at a crossroads where we must confront a labor system that continues to allow companies like Hyundai to profit through subcontractors will deny responsibility when workers are harmed. We reject the excuse they weren't our employees. If a supply chain delivered workers to your site, those workers are your responsibility. We also reject the federal administration's narrative that this raid was meant to hold Hyundai accountable for illegal hiring practices. If that was truly the case, why has Hyundai faced no repercussions? Why is it only the working class, community members, people who contribute to our economy, the only ones that are facing harm? So today, we're calling for three things. First, accountability from employers, Hyundai and subcontractors. Second, actions from our local officials, no silence. And third, dignity and due process from federal agencies. We call for the release of all immigrants. We call for the release of all parents, caregivers, and workers with work authorization and pending relief.
Can we get 25 more people on that like button, man? Double tap that screen if you're on a mobile device or click those three dots and hit that thumbs up. What's up, Gigi? We in the building, man. We talking about these 475 immigrants, you know, that were basically arrested by ICE and are now sitting in a Georgia detention center. Man, this is crazy.
At Migrant Equity Southeast, we're not reacting to the moment. At Migrant Equity Southeast, we're not reacting to what is happening now. We are reacting to a history of abuse by Hyundai and the subcontractors. And to the media, we ask you to not treat this as a one-day story. Come back tomorrow and the next day. Sustained coverage is the only way to hold powerful institutions accountable. At Coastal Georgia, we
She said hold thousands of institutions accountable. Let's go.
understand the immense effort that it takes to build and maintain global logistics systems. Our resilience is real, but so is our love. The kind that protects communities. Georgia is home for many immigrants. When I think of Georgia, the place where I grew up, this is not the Georgia that we deserve. This is not the Georgia that we deserve. People are
This
watching.
happened in Georgia.
Not just in the country, but everywhere. We are much better than that. And we refuse to the narrative that we must be separated. Both Latinos and Koreans, we demand accountability. It's all of us or none of us. And together we're stronger. Thank you.
Who's next?
Thank you, Daniela. My name is Jenny. I am the labor rights organizer here at MESE. We must understand that these raids did not happen in isolation. Hyundai has a documented history of labor violations. Just this spring, 2 workers were killed in preventable incidents at the same plant.
She said she says Hyundai has a history. That means this ain't their first time. They've been doing stuff they should not be doing. Let's talk about it.
Their deaths should have been a wake-up call for change. Instead, workers continue to pay the price with their safety, their freedom, and now their families. The truth is simple. This raid exposes a broken system where billion-dollar corporations benefit while workers bear the risk. Immigrant labor has been exploited, endangered, and now criminalized, with no accountability for those at the top. And the impact is devastating. Fathers, sons, sisters, daughters are missing from their homes. Pregnant workers running to the woods to hide, risking their lives. These are not just workers. They are our neighbors, our friends, the people we sit next to at church. What happened at Hyundai is not just an immigration issue, it is a labor rights crisis. No worker should fear being met with militarized force at their job. No family should fear being torn apart for showing up to work. This is why we're calling for transparency, accountability, and immediate support for those impacted. And we need the public's help. Here are 3 ways you can take action. Call the hotline, report ICE activity, or seek help at 912-429-7951. You can also donate. Support families with urgent legal, housing, and financial aid. You can also volunteer. Offer legal, language, fundraising, and mutual aid support. This is a pivotal moment. We can no longer allow corporations to exploit workers.
Well, at least she's
While
being
the government
honest, guys.
militarizes our communities, we must demand dignity, safety, and justice for every worker in Georgia.
This woman right here got to be speaking for South
I'm
Korea.
Park, president of the Korean American Coalition. I stand here today on behalf of our community, alongside with many others who cares about fairness, dignity, and justice. Georgia celebrated Hyundai LG plan as a $7.6 billion investment, the largest in our state's history, promising more than 8,500 jobs. For years, this project was praised as a model of a partnership between Georgia and Korea, a symbol of economic growth and international cooperation. But that promises has now been overshadowed. On September 4th, ICE carried out the largest single-site raid in its history, a Hyundai LG plant near Savannah. Instead of partnership, the world saw 475 workers shackled and treated as criminals. America has the right to enforce its law, but our Constitution also demands due process and human dignity for every person. Lawyers, interpreters, fair hearings, and access to claims are not optional. They are fundamental rights. America is strongest when it protects both the rules of law and human dignity. We cannot sacrifice one for the other. The Hyundai LG plan required highly specialized subcontractors and technicians to move the project forward. Visas were needed, but they were not granted at the scale required. Everyone from the companies to government leaders understood this reality. When technicians entered the US on a short-term visitor's visa to meet urgent need, it was not about individual wrongdoing, but it was about the system that failed to align immigrant policy and economic promises. Workers should not be scapegoated for filling the very gaps we all created as society.
Oh, wow.
Our charter flight may transfer people out of the country, but it does not solve the deeper problem.
Let's go, Margie.
Families have been torn apart, communities have been shaken, and the trust that we once linked Georgia and Korea and the United States and Korea has been broken.
I knew she was talking about Korea.
Workers and communities are now not disposable. Do not strip away the dignity of 475 lives and its family that are here and far. While I was in Savannah, I visited communities that were confused and afraid. I met with nonprofit leaders, partners who've been working tirelessly throughout night without rest. And I saw local leaders stepping forward in remarkable ways. And what I witnessed was clear. These individuals were not criminals. They were part of our society, neighbors, parents, brothers and sisters, and people who worship with at churches. They are no different from our workers across the nation who simply wants to provide their families and society and build a future with dignity.
Now, this is from the other side, guys. This is not just Trump and them talking. That ain't what we do over here. We listen to all sides. So this is from the workers' side. The people who were detained and basically are now sitting in Georgia detention centers behind being arrested by ICE for being here illegally. We heard from ICE, you know, and the people in power. Now we're hearing from the workers. We get their side. We got to get all sides. That's the only way you get the truth. Let's talk about it.
If government has recruited investment and if corporation made invested, then they also need to bear the responsibility to protect the workers and communities who sustain that investment. They must not shift blame onto workers. They must not walk away from responsibility. That is why we are calling for due process, real access to legal counsel, and concrete support for families and immigrant communities. We also need long-term solution, pathway that prevent this form from ever happening again. Because it will happen again. Politicians, leaders, and communities must act now to create support system to show up and to take responsibility. In Savannah, volunteers, community organizers, and local leaders are already stepping up.
B says the workers were here on visas that were paid for by the companies, which means all of them weren't illegal. So why did they get arrested, guys? That's the question.
Raising their voices and finding ways to support those most impacted. And most importantly, this is not just about Koreans, workers. It's about Latino workers that were also detained. Their families and communities who have already been suffering and in pain for a long time, once again, they are suffering now. Injustice against the one community is injustice against us all. Our responses must be one of solidarity across all communities so that no one faces this injustice alone. The raid at Hyundai LG plant has shaken Savannah, Georgia, the United States, and Korea. If we stay silent, we accept fear, broken trust, and injustice. But if we act together, we show the world that America protects both rule of laws and the dignity of people. That is what America we believe in, and that is standard we must demand today together. Thank you.
Let's go, man. They speaking on behalf of the workers, guys. Let's hear them out.
Good morning. My name is Meredith Yoon, and I am the Litigation Director at Asian Americans Advancing Justice Atlanta. Asian Americans Advancing Justice Atlanta condemns ICE's raid and arrest of nearly 500 workers from the Hyundai worksite in Elabel, Georgia.
They are condemning it, guys.
ICE's actions have torn through communities, leaving families unsafe, uncertain, and afraid. Many of the workers ICE detained had work permits and other forms of...
Oh yeah, let me say this, man. We also have memberships available, guys. If you would like to become a member to this channel, simply click that money sign that you see on your screen. Click the money sign and then click basically get a membership, man. We most definitely have memberships. They the same price as a bag of chips at the store, man. $5 gets you in, man. Shout out to all my sidewalk people that's in the building.
Documentation. Documented or not, no one should be subjected to militarized raids in their workplace. No family should live in fear of being torn apart. According to reports, ICE and other law enforcement agencies descended upon the worksite, heavily armed and flanked with helicopters, drones, and military vehicles, blank warrant forms in hand, showing that they were planning to detain individuals indiscriminately. By 6:30 p.m., 7 buses had been filled with workers from South Korea, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, and Venezuela to be detained. Many of those arrested were taken to the Folkestone ICE Processing Center, a detention center in South Georgia with a record of human rights abuses. Despite these abuses being well documented, ICE recently expanded its contract at the facility, which is run by the GEO Group, a private prison corporation, tripling Folkestone's capacity to 3,000 beds and making it one of the largest detention centers in the country. This expansion, like last week's raid, is unacceptable and morally bankrupt, and gives ICE the infrastructure to carry out the administration's xenophobic and racist mass deportation agenda. Lawyers with Asian Americans Advancing Justice Atlanta are working with other civil rights organizations across the country to assist detained workers and their families in pursuing their legal options. While the administration ramps up its attacks on immigrant communities in Georgia, local organizations and our national allies are prepared, and we are fighting back against the government's illegal acts. We echo demands from the community for all those arrested to be released, and we call upon state and local governments to take strong positions against these atrocious attacks on our communities. Together, we will push back against these injustices and stand up for the dignity of every worker and every family in our beloved community. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Julia Solorzano. I am the Legal and Policy Director at Centro de los Derechos del Migrante, or CDM. CDM stands in solidarity with all the organizations present here and with all the workers who were detained in last Thursday's raid at the Hyundai plant in Elabel, Georgia. CDM is an organization that partners with migrant workers to build worker power, advocate for fair labor migration policies, and ensure that borders are not a barrier to justice. The Hyundai supply chain has a documented history of labor violations. CDM is currently representing workers in 2 class action lawsuits in Georgia, where workers in the Hyundai supply chain were defrauded through a bait and switch scheme and experienced retaliation when they spoke out about poor working conditions. Employers in the Hyundai supply chain try to avoid all responsibility for their workers' well-being by hiring workers through staffing agencies and subcontractors. At this very site where last Thursday's raid occurred, workers and their representatives have documented an array of abuses, including worker deaths. Yet instead of holding employers accountable, the Trump administration is further victimizing workers. Migrant workers face high rates of wage theft, discrimination, unsafe work.
Wage theft. Whoa.
Places, sexual harassment, and assault.
Dang.
Many of these abuses go unreported because workers fear immigration consequences if they speak out. Unscrupulous employers exploit that fear, threatening to weaponize the immigration system to silence workers. Workplace raids, like what we saw last Thursday, deepen that fear. These raids are designed to terrorize migrant workers. They are militaristic, aggressive, and often violent. In past workplace raids, workers have been racially profiled and in some instances physically assaulted by officers. By ramping up immigration enforcement in this way, the government enables abusive employers to continue exploiting workers. In fact, many of the workplaces targeted for raids since 2018 already had documented histories of labor violations, like the Hyundai plant in Elabel. And yet, time and again, we see that employers face no comparable accountability. That imbalance sends a clear message. When ICE comes to a workplace, it is the workers, not their abusive employers, who pay the price. Time and again, workers are handcuffed, profiled, arrested, jailed, deported, and separated from their families. We demand that our representatives focus on ensuring that employers like Hyundai are held accountable and respect the rights of those who work in their supply chain, rather than making workers more...
Are y'all agreeing with the spokespeople for the immigrants that were arrested? Or do y'all side with Trump? Let me know.
...are vulnerable to abuse and retaliation through actions like last Thursday's raid. We will continue to organize with our communities to protect the rights of migrant workers, and we demand that our representatives do the same.
All right, so we got Mo that says visas are taking a long time to be renewed. At my job, LAX airport, they let 20 people go for expired visas. They gave them 6 months to renew them. Government not renewing them fast enough. We here now. Yeah, we absolutely here now, Mo.
Good morning, and thank you all so much for being here. I'm State Representative Ann Allen Westbrook. I represent Georgia House District 163. You are in Georgia House District 163 this morning. It is my great honor to stand with all of these leaders and all of these organizations. I know for a fact that NACE has been working nonstop since Thursday morning. Probably haven't slept. They have immediately gone into action to support the needs of this community, specifically our immigrant neighbors. And I'm certain that our coalition members who are represented here have done the same. I look at this situation as a legislator in the Georgia State House, and I see no winners in this situation. My colleagues here have spoken very eloquently about how hard this hit our immigrant communities. Certainly, they are first and foremost in our minds, those most closely affected by this situation, those who ended up in ICE detention. And I think the context matters at this time. This is ICE detention at a time when ICE is ever expanding, ever resourced, while every other agency that supports Americans is less and less resourced. This is ICE detention at a time when due process is out the window. We know that there have been immigrants who have been sent to foreign prisons on the basis of the tattoos they had. We know that there are immigrants, undocumented folks at risk of being sent to foreign countries to which they have absolutely no connection. So I think it's important to keep due process in the forefront here and the rule of law in the forefront. The rule of law protects all of us or it protects none of us. And we have to care about the rule of law at all times, including now, when vulnerable folks are most affected. But I do look at this as a Georgia state legislator, and I think of all that Georgians have invested in this project, all that Georgians have invested in building a relationship with Korea, a business relationship, a diplomatic relationship, a friendship, and how much this situation on Thursday, this raid, undermines that friendship. And I think about all the costs that have been felt in this community, our water woes, our traffic. There's, growth brings discomfort as well as the hoped for prosperity. But no one has won in this situation. not our immigrant neighbors, certainly, not worker safety, not environmental or other types of legal compliance, and certainly not Georgians. So it is my honor to stand with these folks today. I urge more elected leaders to speak out and stand with us and support these leaders and the immigrant communities that they speak for at this time when it's desperately needed. Thank you.
So for our last message, we can't do this alone. Coastal Georgia is in the spotlight everywhere. As a person that was raised in South Georgia, I refuse to let my home be known as a place of hate. Coastal Georgia will be known as a place of love because that is what we are. But we can't do this alone. So at Migrant Equity Southeast, we ask you for help. We ask you for your support. So for everyone that is watching, pay attention to what's happening. Because on September 4th, it happened to immigrant workers. And in the future, we don't know who will be next. So please, we ask you for your support. Together, we can do a lot more. Together, we can stand up for the rights of immigrants and refugees. Thank you.
We're going to close the press conference, but speakers are available for individual interviews. Thank you.
So we heard from the workers, guys. All right, so now let's bounce back over here to Trump and the president of South Korea, and basically what he had to say about all of this. Because from what I hear, they have reached a deal, guys. Let's check this one out.
Following a massive immigration raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia will be released and brought home. That's according to the South Korean government, who made that announcement on Sunday. Presidential chief of staff there said that South Korea and the U.S. had finalized negotiations on the workers' release. He said South Korea plans to send a charter plane to bring the workers home as soon as remaining administrative steps are completed.
So South Korea and the president, or basically their president, are looking to send a plane to bring all South Korean people that were basically detained in those Georgia facilities, basically to send them home, guys. So they're going back to their country of origin, says the president of South Korea, guys, and Trump has agreed.
U.S. immigration authorities on Friday said that they had detained 475 people. Most of them were South Korean nationals when hundreds of federal agents raided Hyundai's sprawling manufacturing site in Georgia, where the Korean automaker Hyundai makes electric vehicles. South Korea's foreign minister later said that more than 300 South Koreans were among the detained. The operation was the latest in a long line of workplace raids conducted as part of the Trump administration's mass deportation agenda. But the one on Thursday is especially distinct because of its large size and the fact that it targeted manufacturing sites that state officials have long called Georgia's largest economic development project. So that is just the latest breaking news from that story that we brought to you earlier this week. The fact that more than 300 South Korean workers that were detained following that massive immigration raid at a Hyundai plant in Georgia will be released and brought home. I want to continue on with some more of these immigration headlines by bringing on here immigration attorney Elizabeth Ricci. She joins us on the show to break it all down. Elizabeth, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I do want to pivot, though. I don't want to specifically ask you about that raid that happened in Georgia. Let's take a live look over here. This is in North Carolina, because the question that I want to ask really corresponds with this. Earlier this week, in a unanimous vote, Durham City Council passed a resolution to make North Carolina a city of, quote, Fourth Amendment workplace, and that was in order to increase protections for city workers against some of these ICE enforcement efforts. Now, Elizabeth, I had never heard that term before. Can you explain what that is?
Sure. So the Fourth Amendment is regarding unlawful searches and seizures by the government. So North Carolina is particularly concerned about ICE coming into workplaces and demanding records and demanding employees to arrest for removal. So the concern is that officials want to know, company officials want to know, what rights do they have and do their workers have in that context? And they want to protect themselves and assert their Fourth Amendment rights. So there's a difference between a judicial warrant and an ICE warrant. And I'm actually going to be teaching a class on that to some officials soon. So an ICE warrant does not require probable cause the way a judicial warrant does. An ICE warrant does not allow forced entry the way a judicial warrant does. So it depends on the type of warrant that is presented, and it is very important that employers know the difference so they can inspect the warrants and make sure that they apply to their workplace and that particular date and are legitimate before law enforcement comes into the building to do their inspection and or their arrests.
Several cities across the country we have seen have these concerns when it comes to these raids that are happening. Why haven't we seen this been adopted before, and could we expect more of that in the coming weeks?
I think it wasn't expected before. I think employers thought that they were immune from this type of raid, but as we saw in Georgia recently with the Hyundai plant, that's not the case, although it is the workers who are being targeted and not the employers. And I think we will see more and more municipalities and states be concerned about their companies and their workers and assert those Fourth Amendment rights against unlawful searches and seizures. It's going to be much more commonplace, I expect.
We want to move on here to another headline regarding immigration and bringing us out to this live image that we have over in Washington.
Man, listen, y'all. These ICE raids, man, are causing a lot of controversy in the United States as well as other places, man. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? In my opinion, I knew that it was going to get out of hand, man. I knew that it was going to be a lot of blowback. I keep on saying that, but I was saying it day one. And it just came to fruition, guys. You know, this is crazy, man. This is most definitely crazy work. What y'all think?
DC. Earlier this week, we did see a legal aid group that was based in Arizona. So they have sued
What's up, Nurse P?
The Trump administration and the DOJ to preemptively block them from deporting a dozen Honduran children. We're going to follow this story closely, but Elizabeth, I want you to break it down for us a little bit here. When it comes to migrant children here that are, the DOJ is trying to deport them, how does that legal process work?
So children are in a unique position. They can often request a benefit called special immigrant juvenile if they've been declared a dependent of the state. In other words, they don't have a parent in the United States who can care for them, but they need to get an order from a family law court first. And if they are in deportation or removal, they're not really that different from that adult defendant. And what I do want to be clear about is that immigration violations are civil. They're not criminal. So those children do not have a right to an attorney in those proceedings. And we have seen cases of 5-year-olds defending themselves in immigration court, and that's a problem.
And then just continuing on with that.
She said they have cases where 5-year-olds basically defended themselves in immigration court. 5-year-olds? Come on now. That don't even sound right. 5-year-old defending themselves. Come on, man. What are we doing? Mahel, they deported DRS and nurses the other day here because their visas wasn't renewed, and in some cases it has been more than 7 months. Well, most said that they were most definitely behind, man. They're in some places they're not even renewing visas. That's the crazy part. Wow.
Process. Let's say they are deported. Is there any kind of steps that are taken to ensure that those children are reunited with family members?
Not necessarily. And often they don't have family members. Sometimes the family members are in the United States or they're deceased. And that's why getting that special immigrant juvenile court order from the family law court in the United States is so helpful, so that if they are removed, they're not just dropped off and having to fend for themselves as toddlers or small children.
All right, we're going to say with some more of this news regarding the Trump administration, back out live to this image of the White House. Earlier this week, we saw a federal judge, this happening in San Francisco, they blocked the Trump administration from ending temporary legal protections that have been granted to more than 1 million people from Haiti and Venezuela. They have been granted there the right to live and work in the United States. Break that down for us, Elizabeth. When it comes to that protection status, why was that granted in the first place, and what does it entail?
So you're referring to TPS, temporary protective status, which is basically a protection for people in the United States so they do not have to return to their home countries that are experiencing civil strife, natural disaster, that type of thing. And the Secretary of Homeland Security this week said that they reviewed the conditions in Venezuela.
Big Pressure says American workers need those jobs. Okay.
And that they no longer merit TPS, which if you have any Venezuelan friends or family members, as I do, you'd know that, things like toilet paper are hard to come by. People have basically no rights even to use their own homes. So that's disingenuous. But in any event, so TPS was granted for people from Haiti, from Venezuela, because they met those conditions. And now the secretary is saying that one, those conditions have improved, which they have not. But two, that TPS was being used as a magnet to come to the United States, which does not fall within the reasoning to be able to justify the termination of TPS. In addition, courts have said that the president and the secretary were using the Alien Enemies Act to justify terminating TPS for 600,000 Venezuelans and additional Haitians. And a federal judge determined that there was no invasion of foreign government, which is the requirement to be able to invoke that act. But the Supreme Court, on the other hand, has said that the president can terminate TPS. So we see that Venezuelans and Haitians especially are going to be in a limbo in these coming days and weeks because we have different courts making different conflicting decisions about who can stay and who must go.
That's really interesting. And I feel like the next question would be, why is this not sort of an open and shut case, and really who is going to be listened to when it comes to that decision? But we'll dive deeper on that in a later segment, Elizabeth, because I do want to get to one more story here, and that is concerning Kilmer Garcia. So that case is still continuing on here, but the latest...
All right, so from what I hear right now on this guy, the Garcia guy, that's the dude that was sent to the El Salvadorian prison and then was brought back and then got arrested again in Tennessee and basically runs the risk of being deported. They said that he will be going to a small African country. He's going to get deported regardless. He's going to a small African town or country or something like that. They said that's the latest on Garcia.
Is the fact that immigration enforcement saying Friday in a letter that they intend to send Kilmer Garcia to the African nation of Eswatini after he expressed a fear of deportation to Uganda. So, Elizabeth, are we just going to keep going down different nations in Africa to try to send Kilmer to?
It certainly seems like it.
And why are we sending him to Africa? He don't look African to me. You know what I'm saying? Why is he going to... I thought they supposed to be shipped home, as far as what I heard in the beginning. I can most definitely tell you that Africa ain't that guy's home. What's going on?
Reason that he was not going to be, it looks like, going to Uganda was because he asserted a claim for asylum. And I think he'll do the same for Eswatini, formerly Swaziland. And reason being that he will experience persecution based on the media attention, everything that's happened to him in the United States, and that he would not be safe there. So this is just a case that's been compounded with errors and legal maneuverings over and over that really have complicated his legal profile. But it does look like that's the location where they want to send him because he declined a deal to go to Costa Rica.
So, Elizabeth, I know that you do teach some class.
They sending that food to Africa. Lord have mercy. That is too funny.
Sometimes, when we look at Kilmer Abrego's case here, how do you talk to your students about that? Especially because, as you've mentioned before, it's very unprecedented what we have seen here.
Well, I'm not teaching this semester, particularly because everything is changing so quickly, and I do have a law practice and a family, and I would have to basically redo the curriculum every lesson. But this particular case is unbelievable because it all stemmed from an error by the administration that they were not willing to own up to, and they have just continued to double down and double down. This individual has no convictions. He has a citizen family, and he is the poster child for how not to effectuate a legal case.
Immigration attorney Elizabeth Ricci, we're always glad to have you here on the show. A lot of headlines to get to.
So that's crazy, y'all. They are sending the Garcia dude to a small African country, guys. Yeah, he most definitely ain't from Africa. You can look at him and tell. That is wild, man. All right, so Trump actually spoke on the situation that went on in Georgia, guys. Give me a half a second while I pull this up. We finna hear from Trump himself about the raid that took place in Georgia, guys. That's wild. They send him to Africa. Wow.
They're doing their job. That's what they have to do.
Hold up.
So the Atlanta streaming. Let's get to this really big story. No doubt you've seen this in the headlines. All of those workers at the Hyundai plant in South Georgia who were detained by ICE. Well, today South Korea's prime minister is planning to come to the U.S. to bring those 300 employees detained during an ICE raid there in South Georgia to bring them home. So last week, about 475 people detained through the raid at that Hyundai LG battery plant just west of Savannah. Homeland Security officials called it their single biggest operation yet. I mean, just the magnitude of that, 475 workers detained by ICE. So this week, Korean officials say they've worked out a deal with Washington to release 300 of those workers. They will be allowed to fly back home.
300 of those workers will be released, guys. At least 300 of them.
On a charter plane.
Which are probably the ones from South Korea, guys. Remember, they said like a little over 300 out of 475 people were South Korean. So those 300 are most definitely South Korean. And the Korean president basically said he will be sending an airplane to come pick them up and bring them home. But I also heard that the South Korean leaders will be making a trip to the U.S. as well.
And according to Hyundai, those workers were employed by subcontractors and not the company itself. So they were accused of entering the U.S. illegally, some of them for overstaying their visas, coming in via a visa waiver, which does not allow them to work in the U.S. So in a press conference, President Trump commended ICE, said they did a great job here, and said they were just doing their job. So let's listen to what he said about that.
Get along with other countries, and we want to have a great, stable workforce. And we had, as I understand it, a lot of illegal aliens, some not the best of people, but we had a lot of illegal aliens working there. So, look, they're doing their job. That's what they have to do.
So the Atlanta Mexican consulate.
Yeah, that was what Trump had to say about it. Hold up.
President Trump commended ICE, said they did a great job here, and said they were just doing their job. So let's listen to what he said about that.
Get along with other countries, and we want to have a great, stable workforce. And we had, as I understand it, a lot of illegal aliens, some not the best of people.
So he said we had a lot of illegal aliens over there basically working at that Hyundai plant, and some of them not the best of people. He said that you say that every time about every immigrant that gets arrested, you say that, most of them or the person was not a good person. That's just to cover up, hey, if I made a mistake, oh well. Basically they're bad anyway, even if they have no criminal history. We've seen it before, but I'm just pointing out, Trump always say that either some of them or the person that got deported was not a good person. That's crazy.
But we had a lot of illegal aliens working there. So, look, they're doing their job. That's what they have to do.
So the Atlanta Mexican consulate says that 23 of those detained were not Korean nationals. They were Mexican nationals. Most of them have agreed to leave the U.S. voluntarily, and they'll soon be taken back to Mexico. So again, South Korea's prime minister headed to the U.S. Today to try to take home 300 of those employees detained during that ICE raid there at the Hyundai plant in South Georgia. So we will keep you updated there on the very latest. We want to take you now to D.C. That is where President Donald Trump has delivered some remarks from the Museum of the Bible this morning, and some sources have said that It's to revive a prayer initiative. It's to celebrate religious liberty there at the museum. So he did speak. Let's listen to what he had to say about it.
Well,
This is Trump today.
Thank you very much. I said we'll have to cut Lee Greenwood a little bit short. How good is he, right? He's been with us right from the beginning. And I wanted to stand and listen to the entire song, but people would have said, look at the ego of that guy. He just wouldn't stop. He just stood there and listened to the applause. But I appreciate it very much. And I want to thank you for doing an incredible job, Pam Bondi. The Attorney General has been unbelievable. Incredible job. And thank you to all of the faith leaders, pastors, and patriots who have come to the Museum of the Bible for this historic meeting of the Presidential Commission on Religious Liberty. These are incredible people. And everybody wanted to be on this commission, and I made a couple of people unhappy, maybe even enemies for life, I don't know. But they all wanted to be on the commission, but we picked the right ones, and they've done a really profound.
I gotta stay on topic, guys. This is it. If you want to go check it out, go check out Fox News. You know what I'm saying? We most definitely implicate the Fair Use Act of 1976 on all videos played. This is most definitely for educational purposes only. The South Korean president has most definitely, their government have spoken out about what took place at this Hyundai situation after they secured this deal. And let me tell y'all, they said they are not happy about it. Let's jump over there real quick, to stay on topic. This ain't got nothing to do with what we talking about, what Trump talking about right now. Hold up.
Korea says it's working to bring home hundreds of its citizens who were detained in an ICE raid on a Georgia auto plant last week. Madison Scarpino is in Elabelle, Georgia. She's got more. Hi, Madison.
Hi, Dana. South Korea has not been happy about this historic raid. So now it's acting quick to get more than 300 of its citizens out of an ICE detention center. The South Korean government says it made a deal with the U.S. and after finalizing some details, it plans to send a chartered plane here. And those hundreds of detainees, many who were searched and shackled, will fly back home to South Korea. President Trump is calling this a very interesting situation. He backs ICE, but says we should look into letting foreign workers stay here to train.
Yeah, I don't want to remember. I told y'all at the beginning of this broadcast that like a week ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, the South Korean president was here and did some kind of deal with Trump where South Korea was talking about pouring a lot of money into the U.S. Most definitely don't want to lose that connection behind the Hyundai plant raid that involved a lot of people from South Korea, man. So maybe, they got together and, that president from over there in South Korea said, hey, man, I'm not giving you one red penny if you don't let my people go. And Trump was like, well, you know what? In the best interest of America, just come pick them up, so we can keep this money that we're about to get. Because they most definitely ironed out a deal real quick. I'm just saying.
American workers.
If you don't have people in this country right now that know about batteries, maybe we should help them along and let some people come in and train our people to do, complex things. So we're going to look at that whole situation.
South Korea's foreign minister is reportedly planning to travel to Washington today about all this.
So here in a little bit, we may have an update for y'all. I may come back live if the South Korean president, basically they saying that he's coming to America today to talk to Trump about what's going on with his people, guys. Yeah, breaking news.
President Trump says this hasn't impacted our relationship with the key ally.
We have a great relationship with South Korea. Really good relationship. We just made a trade deal.
This Hyundai mega plant has been touted as one of Georgia's largest economic development project, and that it's meant to train thousands of Georgians. Thursday's raid happening while workers were building an EV battery factory, and just that factory itself is an over $4 billion investment. So Homeland Security says everyone arrested at the raid either had crossed the border illegally.
There we go. Thank you for giving me the exact amount. Trump had just made a $350 billion deal with Korea, right before South Korea, right before this happened. You don't want to lose out on that kind of money, man. Yeah, work out whatever you got to work out and to ensure that we keep that money coming in, and that's exactly what Trump did.
Had expired worker visas or was not supposed to be working on a visa waiver program. But we spoke to an attorney representing two of the people detained who tells us his clients were working here legally. Dana.
All right, Madison, thank you.
So former ICE Director Jonathan Fahey is here to explain all this. Jonathan, good morning to you. How does a company like this get away with it or find themselves in this circumstance?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You wouldn't think a large company like this with so much to risk would risk using illegal workers. And I think what's really interesting and important about this, you hear sort of the complaints of, that attorneys saying that people were here legally, but there was a federal judge that issued a search warrant for this. So that judge found that there was probable cause for criminal law violations going on there, mainly with the employers. And I think President Trump's response is quite interesting and important in that, we need to make sure people are here legally, and if we need American workers trained, we should do that too. It's a total common sense approach, but it's always an American worker first approach as well as American business approach. But this whole thing is very good as far as deterrence, because companies that are hiring illegal people are, one, putting American workers at a disadvantage. Also, they're putting American businesses that play by the rules at a disadvantage. So this raid was a great deterrent to ensure that people here are working legally. Illegal people aren't allowed to work, and businesses aren't allowed to profit from using illegal workers.
Well, I find it all intriguing. Dana and I were talking about this last week. Doesn't E-Verify supposed to make sure this doesn't happen? Or do you have a lot of people being paid under the table?
Yeah, I think that's probably what they're looking into. Like, how do these people get in here and get through the system? Are they paid under the table? Are there fraudulent documents being used? I think that's probably one of the things they're looking at, fraudulent employment documents, I-9s and things like that. So I think that's part of the investigation. And clearly they had a lot of information before going in, because you wouldn't go into an operation this extensive. They arrested, 475 people. So this was a massive operation, massive planning into this. So they probably had information that there were lots of violations or potentially lots of criminal law violations going on there.
Jonathan, one more story I'm going to hit you with. Put the headline up from FoxNews.com. Here it is now. Cartel connection. Hezbollah and Iran exploit Maduro's Venezuela for cocaine cash. Now we're being told that the Venezuelan government will tackle the cartels off its own coast. What do you make of that, given the raid that we saw on a boat at sea a week and a half ago?
It just shows how effective that boat raid was on deterrence, because they weren't talking about this a week ago. And I think they know that President Trump is strong on this issue, strong on the cartels, and also strong on any nation that's supporting them. So this was really effective, and it's going to really embolden a lot of these other nations to stand up to the cartels also, because remember, under the Biden administration, we basically, in effect, turned over our southern border to the cartels. They had more power than a lot of these nations. So the tide has turned, but I think it's President Trump's not only strong action, but just a difference from the weakness and ineptitude of the Biden administration.
Okay, watching both those stories, find them very intriguing. Jonathan.
All right, you know what I'm saying? So we find out that later on today, the South Korean president, is basically coming to America to have a talk with old Trumpy Trump about what Trump just did regarding his people, guys. That's crazy. And I forgot, a little bit earlier, and now we're going to touch on this. What was the Hyundai plant exactly being accused of doing, which got the whole plant raided, guys? I just got some information on that whole situation so we can figure out how we got here in the first place. Hold on real quick.
Agassi plant in Bryan County. It comes from this search warrant in my hand that was unsealed. And according to this court document, agents were looking for records about violations to conceal.
So here we go. They said the ICE raid warrant basically got unsealed, and it says that they were looking for violations to conceal or harbor aliens, unlawful employment, Department of Homeland Security correspondence, confiscate all computers. Let's let it continue.
or harbor aliens or examples of unlawful employment at the HLGA Battery Company. And the search warrant also states that investigators wanted records, business records for the battery company, its contractors, as well as its subcontractors. They wanted time cards, payroll information, identification, and immigration documentation, plus any type of correspondence with the Department of Homeland Security and Immigration Services. And they also wanted to confiscate all of the computers on site. To read the full document, just visit our website, WJCL.com.
This, in fact, was the largest single site enforcement operation in the history of Homeland Security investigations.
And for the first time tonight, President Donald Trump weighing in, saying that he learned about the raid.
I just heard about that a little while before the news conference, and I would say that they were illegal aliens, and ICE was just doing its job.
Homeland Security investigators, of course, holding a news conference this morning that you can watch on WJCL.com. WJCL 22 News' Tia Maggio reports officials claim that many of the detainees are North Korean nationals.
We are sending a clear and unequivocal message that those who exploit our workforce, undermine our economy, and violate federal laws will be held accountable.
All eyes were on Homeland Security Friday as it shared details about its historical ICE operation. 475 undocumented immigrants arrested at the Hyundai mega-site battery plant in Bryan County Thursday.
We need all work to end on the site right now.
The majority, Homeland Security says, were Korean nationals.
Some that illegally crossed the border into the United States. Some that came in through visa waiver and were prohibited from working. Some that had visas and overstayed their visas. And each individual was questioned on their status.
Stemming from allegations of unlawful employment practices and other federal crimes.
This has been a multi-month criminal investigation where we have developed evidence, conducted interviews, gathered documents, and presented that evidence to the court in order to obtain a judicial search warrant.
Concerns raised of use of force during the investigation, which the department shot down.
No, there were no substantial uses of force, no significant injuries.
As for the mega-site, they face no criminal charges for now.
This is an ongoing investigation. No charges have been filed, so that means that no wrongdoing is being accused at this time.
Reporting, Tia Maggio, WJCL 22 News.
I need to correct myself. Officials claim that many of the detainees are Korean nationals. Today,
absolutely Korean.
Protesters in downtown Savannah speaking out against that ICE raid. They demand that action be taken by local leaders to protect immigrants. And they say they're fed up with local law enforcement's involvement with recent operations. And after an hour of protesting, they went into the courthouse for the bi-weekly commission meeting.
Make our community
safer. ICE brings rage, violence, and fear into our community.
Remove him.
Georgia only requires the bare minimum, sir. The Chatham police.
Remove him.
Sir.
Remove him.
Working with Chatham police.
Take him out.
I told y'all, man, it's causing
They bring violence and fear. They hurt our civilians.
Out.
Get them out.
Those protests were organized by the Savannah Democratic Socialists of America. The Hyundai Motor Company has released a statement about that operation. It says that none of those detained were directly employed by the company. Hyundai says that it is committed to following all the laws and the rules, and they're checking to make sure the processes, make sure everyone involved follows those processes as well as these standards. We have posted the full Homeland and Security News Conference on our website. You can watch it right now on WJCL.com.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.com.
All right, so there we go, man. We most definitely got, why it started. Basically where we're at right now with the South Korean president coming to America, basically to have a talk with Trump, as well as bring over 300 of his people back to South Korea, man. We found out that some, but not all, of the workers were here on visas. Some of them that were detained had actual visas or work permits to be here, man. So whether you feel like it was a hit or miss with this whole situation, it is most definitely crazy. 475 what the news and Trump them call illegals arrested in Georgia at a Hyundai plant, man. You know, they're ironing out the details, and if they go live to present any new information, I most definitely bring that to y'all. Or if they go live with the South Korean president in America, I most definitely bring that to y'all. I hope y'all got a little more clarity on the situation that was going on that you probably knew about, and that you found out about a situation that was going on that you didn't know about and got a little more information if you already knew, man. Shout out to everybody in the building. Make sure y'all double tap that screen, man. Most definitely hit that like button. We have made it to the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed it, man. I hope you know that you will come back. If you're new over here, subscribe to the channel. We on the road to 50K. We are now at 42K subscribers. Shout out to everybody that subscribed. Shout out to all of my members. If you would like to get a membership, man, click that money sign down there and most definitely grab you one, man. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to the Sidewalk Gang and all my moderators. Y'all keep it running smooth over here, you know, so I have to do as less as possible, you know, basically give my commentary, you know, and present the information to the people. I enjoyed y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed me. Y'all know how this go. It's time for me to make my grand exit. Sidewalk Gang, checking out. I'll catch y'all on the next one, man. Turn your notification bell on to all so you never miss a show, man. I'll catch y'all later. Y'all be good.